Hello, everybody, and welcome for this new webinar offered by Hydrogen Business for Climate. It's dedicated to innovation. I would like to give you a warm hello from the region Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, which is very keen on hydrogen and focused on green hydrogen. You have to know that this region has made a first order for 3 H2 trains, which will be running in only 2 years on non-electrified regional lines. And the minister in charge of transport has came twice in only 10 days to visit hydrogen installations in this region, which is one of the most dynamic in France. So welcome again for this new webinar. I would like to introduce you to all the speakers. I think we're going to see the whole list displayed here. So we have big companies, we have research centers and startups. So we're going to spend 1 hour and a half to discuss innovation. And I would like to introduce you as well to Bruno Jamet from the cluster Vehicle of the Future. He will be moderating the Q&A sessions. Hello, Bruno, and see you later on. But first, we're going to start with the first part dedicated to big group strategy. Okay, I would like to introduce you to Frédéric Charon from Faurecia. It's an OEM supplier. Time for you, Frédéric, to turn on your camera and your microphone. So Frédéric is a director for the technology, group technology director at Faurecia. And I would like to introduce you as well to Arthur Leroux from Enogia, which is a startup. You're going to speak all together. But first, Frédéric, I would like to know, how is Faurecia organized for innovation?
No, I can't tell you because we just have 1.5 hours, so it's a bit short for that. Besides the fun, that's you know, see, Faurecia is an automotive supplier. Let's say historically settled in Franche-Comté, because we are here one of our major research centers dedicated to hydrogen. Let's say quite close from Belfort. We are just here. And the player. So the organization of innovation in large corporates. So I would say, as any company, we get our organization, innovation organization. But what I'd like to underline is how we moved in the past year due to the complete turnover of the automotive industry. Definitely, new technologies and new systems were coming to the automotive industry, and the automotive companies are big monsters, extremely well structured, but a bit stiff. And so they are able to churn out a lot of things, but are not very flexible. So we had to do something else and extend our innovation networks to other players, external players with whom we wanted to collaborate. And typically, we have expanded since now more than 15 years, an organization dedicated to startup scouting, but also an organization for years and much more longer than that, connection with the academics, with the research centers, and also in terms of purchasing, leading a very, let's say, balanced organization and relation with small companies that are also a very large source of innovation for us. So it's a multi-span activity in terms of innovations that we have developed.
Thank you. I would like to introduce you to Arthur Leroux. So Enogia is the small turbine company. Am I right? Turn on your microphone, please.
Sorry. Yes, exactly. It's right. We are a small company, a startup company, which I founded with two fellow engineers, friends, which I met in engineering school many years ago, Antonin Pochet and Nicolas Goubet. And 10 years ago, we decided to start a company which aim was to transform heat into electricity. And by working on the heat to electricity conversion by means of a thermodynamical cycle called the organic mountain cycle, we quickly discovered that the key barrier to unlock the small-scale conversion of heat to electricity was, of course, the turbine expander. And therefore, we worked for many years on engineering turbine expanders and bringing them to the market. First, on stationary application scales, like for making use of waste heat of larger engines, such as gensets, like you can find in anaerobic digestion waste sectors. And we developed the company commercially on these devices. But as well, through a partnership with IFP Energie Nouvelle, we worked on miniaturizing this technology so that it could be used on vehicles. Actually, it first started with a research project funded by ANF with Alstom Transport, and the goal was to make it small enough to be incorporated into train engines. And then we got to meet Faurecia, especially people at the Research and Development Center at Bavent. And of course, there was a strong mutual interest about how we could miniaturize the this technology on their side, and on our side, how we could bring it to a much larger market. So this is how the story begins.
Okay, so now we're going to tell another story, how you have worked together and made an astonishing discovery. So, Frédéric, I'll let you explain.
Yes, it was the beginning of the story with Enogia, and Arthur stopped where the whole story flopped, because we decided to cease doing the job. So we, at this point, we have also taken a share into Enogia, minority share, but we had sealed a partnership, and we decided to stop the project because the math were not running in terms of energy recovery in vehicles. So this is a failure. Not quite, because having a connection with a company like Enogia, we learn to know the people, learn to know their technologies, and when some time afterwards we focus on hydrogen, we had an issue with the compressor. You know that in fuel cell, you need to have air compressors that will bring the fuel cell under pressure, a couple of bars. And this compressor is not something you will find, let's say, on the open market, because he has very specific topics. In a few words, let's say variable pressure, volume, but also one that is absolutely key for the turbine, for the fuel cells, that it needs to be absolutely clean, not release any kind of dirt inside the fuel cell, because the fuel cell must be absolutely clean inside. A normal compressor would have brought pollutant inside. So we needed something special, and we turned to Enogia to see if they could do something for us. And afterwards, the technology, and because we knew the knowledge of the people, we knew the core of the technology, and so we went into a development. But Arthur, you can, I think, give more details on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, frankly speaking, hydrogen, as a small company manager, I was really focused into our core business. Of course, when you run 25, 30, 40 people now company, you cannot afford to look at every market and every possible applications, because then you get distracted, and the performance, the economical performance is not so good. And so sometimes my shareholders tell me, focus on your core business. And therefore, the hydrogen market was something I was following through some success stories of friends, of nice startup companies, but it was definitely not a market Enogia was involved into. And I remember having this discussion with Pierre-Emmanuel Casanova a few years ago. It was so interesting to discover the strength and the fast-growing characteristics of this hydrogen market. Yet we didn't see how this would impact us as a company. And then Faurecia came with this very strong intent to go in this market. And this was something impressive to us because we saw such a big company focusing a lot of effort into going into the hydrogen market and discussing with us about how we could turn our turbine into a compressor. And basically, when you do turbo machinery, a turbine is basically a compressor which rotates in the other direction. It's not so different in what regards engineering skills. And therefore, we started to look into this compressor problem, this compressor issue. It must be smaller, it must be tighter, it must be cleaner than what is available in the market. You need to run a lot of cycles, you need to guarantee lifetime, you need to focus on being something which can be produced at large scale and low cost. And this was very interesting to us because all that we developed into looking into the small scale ORC for car exhaust, it seems that a lot of ideas we had in this work could be taken from a small turbine to making small compressors. And yeah, it was very interesting. And right now we've moved forward. We've done a few prototypes. We've signed a few contracts with some key players in this market. And it's now becoming a much more important thing to our company. And in the years to come, I think it would become a second pillar of what we will build our growth on.
Okay, thank you. Just maybe one word from Pierre-Emmanuel Casanova, because you mentioned him. So he's a CEO from HySiLabs, and he would like to give us a word about what we call an unexpected discovery, because this is the start of the story as well for HySiLabs. If Pierre-Emmanuel can turn on his camera and microphone as well. It's up to you. The sound has been shut off for Pierre-Emmanuel. If we can solve this issue. Yes?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Frédéric, also for the intro. So yeah, when we decided to create the company based on an unexpected chemical reaction that we have in a public university in the south of France at Aix-Marseille University. So yeah, basically this the technology that we developed, which is a liquid carrier, but I'm pretty sure we will have more time to discuss yes, about that, is based on an unexpected chemical reaction that occurs in a chemistry team hands. So yeah, everything is about creating something that nobody expected to create, and when you have this kind of thing in hands, it's very interesting because there is such a novelty, such innovation based from this unexpected chemical reaction that we found every day.
Thank you for this, Pierre-Emmanuel. I have a question for both of you, Frédéric and Arthur. Question coming from the audience. What materials are used for the air compressor, and what are the compression rates? Arthur, maybe you can give the answer.
Well, in what regards to materials, it's fairly classic materials that are used. Air compressors use mostly aluminum as housing materials and materials for the wheels because the temperatures and pressures are relatively low, and the compression rates differ from the customers. But mostly, most of the projects are in 2 to 4 compression ratio range, and I'd say even more of the projects are in the 2 to 3 compression ratio rate. The pressure is relatively low at the outlet of the compressor. Still, it doesn't mean it's an easy to engineer product because you have many other constraints such as weight, capacity, cycling durability, lifetime durability, and cleanliness at the exhaust of the compressor.
Okay, I would like to introduce you to Vaitea Cowan from Enapter. It's a startup based in Germany. And as a startup, maybe you have a reaction about this story of cooperation between a big group and a young startup.
Absolutely, thanks for having me. And yeah, what a fascinating story it is. I think it's it's amazing that you really seized the opportunity. Both of you really seized it and saw that there was something great to be done. And I think you can really see a complementarity of skills in regards to the innovations and then the experience that Frédéric could bring with his team. So congratulations to both of you. It's needed to accelerate picking up and scaling of hydrogen.
Thank you. I would like to have two more reactions. I would like to ask François Aguey-Zinsou from Sydney, from the University of New South Wales in Australia, because he's very familiar with the French research. And I would like also to hear from Federico Zenith from SINTEF in Norway. But first, François, and thank you because it's night time in Sydney, so thank you for being with us. So as I said, I'm very familiar with French research. What do you think of this story?
I think it's a great story, and I think Vaitea actually summarized my thought too. Sometime, and I see that in some of the venture I'm involved in, we have a lot of people that think that's not a great idea, and then because exactly what Frédéric mentioned, you know the people, you know what they are capable of doing, then you think of them because they are the right person to help you solve the problem. And I think this is always a story of life. You never know what comes around the corner.
Exactly.
Okay. Federico, so you're working for the SINTEF, which is a research center based in Norway. Same question, what do you think of this cooperation?
Well, it's a very good pattern. We see this kind of pattern all the time. I mostly work in European projects, and it's pretty normal. We have one or more big companies or some small companies, and usually this cooperation is always fruitful. What you have, on one hand, you have the agility of a small company, the short decision chains, and on the other hand, the experience and the means of large companies. So it's always a good mix.
Okay, thank you for all this. Because time is running fast, we are going to carry on now with ENGIE. You know, ENGIE, the energy company. So we are going to hear from Secil Torun and Alessandra BARBA. So let me please introduce you to Secil Torun, which is a team leader from the lab hydrogen at the ENGIE Lab CRIGEN, which is a corporate R&D center. Am I right?
Perfectly right, Laurent. Thanks for this kind introduction. So yes, let me first introduce CRIGEN, Center of Research and Innovation for Gas and New Energies. This is a corporate R&D center, not only one within ENGIE, but the main one. We are a little bit less than 200 people, split in 9 teams, and among them 3 dedicated to new gases, liquefaction, biomass, biogas, and waste, which is led by Alessandra, who will speak afterwards, and yes, hydrogen.
Camera so that we can see her and say hello to Alessandra as well. Welcome. So, please keep going, Secil.
Yes, and within CRIGEN, we are fully dedicated to bring technologies into maturity and to prepare the zero carbon transition. And this is really very important for us.
And so your position on the whole value chain at the CRIGEN.
Yes, coming back to hydrogen, my team is fully involved in developing the technologies, overall the hydrogen chain, from production to the different uses, going through transport and storage. And our main missions are first to lower the cost of the hydrogen chain. This is a huge challenge. The other one is to enable the development of hydrogen in different markets for industrials, for territories, and for mobility, for instance. We are identifying and developing this new technology. And last but not least, very important for ENGIE, we have many assets on natural gas, and we have to find ways to valorize them. So we are developing different projects of injection of hydrogen into the grid and producing synthetic natural gas, for instance, not so far from in the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté area in Lyon with the ICONE project.
Yes, so you mentioned injection of gas in the grid, and grid, by the way, is the name of a project led by ENGIE. It's in the north of France. If you can tell us a few words about this.
Yes, for sure. Not surprisingly, innovation is not only in the E of Cryogen, but really in our DNA. We started a grid project in 2014, well before all these developments that we see today. And this was a very important step to go through and to understand what could be the next step for green gases. And in green project, we proved that we could inject and operate safely up to 20% of hydrogen into natural gas distribution grid. This hydrogen natural gas blend was used in more than 100 households and burned into a heater of a health center. And this is really a success that we're looking for to develop in other areas beside Dunkerque.
Okay, so Alessandra, you're the team leader of the Biogas, Biomass and Waste Lab in this same ENGIE Lab CRIGEN. So you're going to introduce us to a project called Gaia. It's about how to turn biomass to hydrogen.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent, for the introduction. Well, you heard from what Cécile said that, of course, in Cryogen, we are working all along the value chain of hydrogen. It's important for us to find new ways of producing hydrogen. And we have a platform, a semi-industrial platform, which was built during the Gaia project. Initially, the Gaia project, which was launched in 2010 with 11 partners from industrial, institutional and academic world, aimed to demonstrate the technical, economic and environmental feasibility of producing biomethane. Initially, it was biomethane who was targeted. And on the platform, we build an integrated system where you have a pyrogasification brick, a syngas cleaning step, and a methanation process, which is an in-house methanation process, which was developed for this project. And it's built as a semi-industrial scale because we really need, we thought there is a need also to help to facilitate the scale-up towards an industrial scale afterwards. So that's why it's quite a big platform which was built. And now, after producing this biomethane from biomass, after producing also a synthetic methane from waste such as refuse-derived fuel, we saw that there is also an opportunity with the same equipment to diversify the energies that can be produced, meaning that with the same equipment, we can produce also hydrogen. We have 2 years ago launched a thesis with our longtime partner in Toulouse, academic partner, the Laboratoire de Génie Chimique in Toulouse, a thesis aiming to study how to enrich the hydrogen content in syngas through pyrogasification by applying a chemical looping concept and optimizing the technical operating conditions. The aim afterwards is to demonstrate it on the Gaia platform, but we know that there are also to address the challenge of lowering production costs, there is also a need to study the downstream bricks, I would say, so the syngas or the syngas cleaning step, and also the water gas shift reactors. So for that, we know that one of the strengths of innovation is, of course, to have experimental demonstration, but also to gather excellence partners in a common goal. And that is why we are also looking to launch a new R&D project on this topic with partners who can bring their expertise on syngas cleaning to purify and have a better quality of hydrogen in the end, development of catalysts, for instance, and also, I might say, regarding CO2 capture, and not only capture, but usage also. Because when you are developing a new pathway, and we know that hydrogen coming from pyrogasification is not yet developed as electrolysis, for instance, but we are aware that we need to address the economic constraint, but also the environmental constraint, and develop a sustainable pathway.
Okay, I would like to ask Vaitea Cowan from Enapter and Arthur Leroux from Enogia maybe to react, because we have here an example of hydrogen being produced with biomass and waste. Although you are focused on electrolysis with green electricity, Vaitea, what do you think of that? Does it make sense to take everything to make hydrogen?
You know, we're going to need a lot of hydrogen, right, in our future, and especially green hydrogen. So I think any technology that actually gets us there to provide enough hydrogen is a step in the right direction. And there's a lot of waste. We're creating a lot of waste. So if we can use waste to create hydrogen, then great. But ultimately, it will be a question of speed and price. This is where the competition will be. And this is why we're focusing more on the AEM electrolyzers, because we know we can scale this very quickly. So.
Thank you. Arthur, please turn on your camera and come with us, because I know that your company, Enogia, has been studying methanization. So what do you think of this R&D project at ENGIE?
Actually, we are supplying devices in all the bioenergy sectors, in the applications of our standard products. They fit well into these operations of converting biomass into something else, namely hydrogen or electricity, because there are always some wasted streams in these applications. But what is more interesting is, as Vaitea said, we need more and more clean hydrogen for enabling the sector to go forward this hydrogen revolution, and therefore we are very keen to support any kind of technology which will allow to benefit from more hydrogen in a greener way, because in the end this will be an opportunity for more vehicles to use this hydrogen, and of course more vehicles mean more fuel cells and means more compressors. So I'm not totally I'm in what we call a conflict of interest in here.
Okay, I would like now to hear from Olivier Dhez from HRS, which is Hydrogen Refueling Solutions. So you're the Director for Business Development and Marketing, Olivier. So we hear a lot about green hydrogen, but we can produce hydrogen differently from biomass, for instance. So does it make sense for you as a builder of H2 stations?
Yes, of course, yes. I think, as it was already mentioned, that we'll need to use a lot of hydrogen. So it can come from any source, and it will be used for any application. I think in terms of mobility, what we care about is the quality and of the hydrogen, because it will be used in the fuel cells, and the fuel cell need to have quite high purity hydrogen. But after the production can be anyone, and we will be very kind to use any type of hydrogen in our refueling station.
Thank you, Olivier. I would like to get back now to Frédéric Charon from Faurecia. He's the voice of the automotive industry today. So, Frédéric, what do you think of that kind of production, hydrogen from biomass? Does it make sense for you?
The answer regarding hydrogen is quite simple. Everything makes sense, because we have to change our mindset. We have had we went through the century of oil, and oil is so simple, because you just get it from the ground, liquid, normal pressure, incredible density of energy, normal state. So we have been, let's say, child that have been too much cherished by a product that is altogether a gift and a no-man, because it's very difficult to get out of it. Okay, but what is absolutely great about hydrogen, and we heard it today, you can produce in so many ways. Clean ways, not so clean ways, and you use it in so many ways too, because you can burn it, put it in gas, put it in heaters, put it in fuel cell. So the usage is absolutely wide. And so when we talk, because that was the looming story, is it clean? Is it energy efficient? Is it cheap? No, it is not. yet. But we get so many ways to improve it. And we are just at the beginning of the story, because the age of the fuel cell, for example, is more or less the same as the internal combustion engine. But it was so simple with oil. So why bother about hydrogen? But now time has come for everything we know about global heating and pollution. We are at the beginning of the story. We are producing fuel cell, but the range and the possibility of improvement is as much as if we were at the beginning of the 20th century working on internal combustion engine. We are very much at the beginning of the story, and hydrogen can be used everywhere, produced everywhere in so many ways. So that's the smallest atom in the world, but it's absolutely magic, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So time has come as well to carry on now with the Q&A session. And I'm going to call Bruno Janet from the cluster Vehicle of the Future. So I have read that you had one question for Secil Torun from ENGIE. It's about the injection of hydrogen in the grid for natural gas. So Bruno, if you can turn on your camera, I'll let you ask a question directly to Secil.
Yes, the first question is, in case of low gas flows, how do you ensure the homogeneous mix of H2 and natural gas?
This was one of the points which was investigated in our grid project. GRDF designed a mixed station which ensured that whatever the quantity of hydrogen injected into the flow of natural gas, it will be, I would say, well mixed to ensure a good level of hydrogen and natural gas mix.
Okay, do we have some other questions, Bruno?
Yes, another question is why producing hydrogen from waste and biomass instead of producing maybe e-fuels from electrolyzers, H2 and combination with CO2?
This is a very good question.
Alessandra, would you like to take this one?
You can start and we'll complete maybe.
Okay.
Okay. I'll start if you want. But basically, within ENGIE, we are looking at lots of ways. We are not thinking at either one pathway or another, and so we are looking at both ways. Either producing hydrogen from biomass, but it doesn't mean that we are not interested also at studying the opportunity to produce also e-fuels from biomass. It will all depend in the end of the market and to find the right economic conditions also.
Yes, for sure. We are really, especially on the R&D center, really technology agnostic, process agnostic, and we are really looking at different business models with different technologies to produce the hydrogen, different ways to combine hydrogen with CO2, for instance, and looking on the power to X processes, but also processes coming from biomass.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Yes, two other questions about the biomass. Are there some constraints in terms of biomass type?
This is something. Sorry, this is something we are currently looking at to know how large the feedstock panel can be. So we are trying to diversify as much as possible the type of feedstock. For sure, there are some kind of limitation when we are working in mixes to address wood chips, for instance, barks, crops, and so on, to mix it and find the optimal one.
Laurent, it depends on the time we have, but there are lots of questions.
Maybe a last question.
Okay, last question. What about the CO2 global emissions between a fuel cell train and the equivalent electrification of the train line?
Okay, who is going to answer?
Okay, maybe another question, maybe here. What about methanol fuel cells instead of hydrogen fuel cells?
From our side, we are really looking and testing all these different type of cells. So we are really involved on all the chain, not only for hydrogen, but also for the other molecules. So looking on e-fuels, we are looking on waste. We are involved in project on ammonia. We are involved in project on methanol, DME, formic acid, from the production to the usages. If I could just give an example, a very concrete one, in Dunkerque, in our C2 fuel project coordinated by us, we are producing DME, we are producing formic acid to send them as hydrogen carriers to two different markets. One is for internal combustion of engines with Volkswagen, and the other one is to be sent to fuel cells with a startup called Dhez in the port of Dunkerque to produce electric power for cold ironing. So really going through directly of these molecules to fuel cells, or reforming these hydrogen carriers into hydrogen then sent to fuel cells, are really in the heart of the different technologies and once again business models we are investigating.
Okay, thank you. So now let's carry on with the second part of this webinar. And I'm going to call first Federico Zenith from the SINTEF in Norway. Federico, so hello. Nice to see you. Thank you for being there from Norway. So can you please first introduce what is the SINTEF for those who maybe still don't know?
Yeah, I found that to learn European origin, the simplest way to introduce SINTEF is that Norway's answer to the Fraunhofer Institute. We do pretty much the same thing, research for industry. The name means Foundation for Industrial and Technical Research. So our job is to research on behalf of mostly industrial companies. We do not have a lot of money coming from the Norwegian government in form of grants. It's less than 8%, and everything else is something we win in the market or through public tenders.
So you are working on several projects on hydrogen, and one of them is about heavy-duty mobility. It's STASH project.
STASH, it just started this January, and it's a really exciting project. This is my fourth EU project. We got 7.5 million euros from Brussels to realize a standard and actually build prototypes. One of the problems that previously with the standard-based projects that the industry made a standard and then they walked away from it because, well, they didn't actually build the prototypes. We are going to build the prototypes. We are going to test them thoroughly, and this has to be done within 3 years. The standard itself should be ready by December, will be ready by December.
So can you please tell us about the context in Norway, because we know that you have some H2 station and the country is very open to alternative energies.
Yeah, Norway generates already more than 95, maybe 99% of electricity by hydropower and wind power today. And it's almost completely green in that sense. But of course, cars are still moving on petrol, and there has been a lot of, you might be aware, there is more than half of new cars now in Norway are battery cars. And I think it's 90% of cars have some form of battery, either hybrid or plug-in hybrid or full battery. There are not that many hydrogen cars, and the main reasons we don't have an infrastructure. If you buy a hydrogen car, it's because of the range, and if you can only drive 300 kilometers away, then you have to turn back because there's only one hydrogen station. That doesn't really help you. But we do have a significant areas of improvement, especially in the countryside. Most battery cars are in the cities, in Oslo, Bergen, Trondheim, well, cities in the Norwegian scale, you might call the villages in the rest of Europe. But for example, in northern and extreme north of Norway, in Finnmark, we have a sparse population, very long distances, very cold climate, and there battery cars are very few. Basically, the classic car, a symbol car bought by the municipality. Privates don't buy them because they don't have the range, and that's where hydrogen can make a difference. There and all in the rural areas around Norway.
So you mentioned heavy-duty mobility. We all know Nikola Motor, the startup from America. It was supposed to introduce some H2 trucks in Northern Europe and especially in Norway, due to the partnership with Nel, which is a very famous company in your country. So do you have some information about this? And what about the market, according to you, of H2 trucks? In the future.
Absolutely, it's a great opportunity. In the stash that I mentioned before is focusing on heavy duty, because as we can see, there is a lot of uptake in private vehicles and private cars, because batteries can cover a lot of that market, and it makes sense to focus on heavy duty because you have applications that are much more stuck to a certain area, for example, to a certain route where you can deploy an infrastructure for refueling that is sufficient with less, but still less capital intensive. Trucks are one great opportunity. In Trondheim, where I'm based, we have a few hydrogen trucks built by Scania, operated by ASCO, which is a distribution retailer for serving a number of supermarket chains, and they are driving around. They have their own hydrogen station south of Trondheim. And but the main thing that we are talking about in Norway is actually the sea. So that is fishing boats, and up to cruise ships, anything that floats. That is very difficult to make it run with batteries. We have actually a lot of battery ferries now, but that's because our fjords are very tight. Just a few kilometers, and then you have to run fast charging at the rates of 1 megawatt. And you cannot do that everywhere. If you have more than, for example, 10 kilometers, you need hydrogen or any other solution that can, because when you arrive with a ferry, you're supposed to have 5 minutes cars out, 5 minutes cars up. So within 10 minutes, you have to charge enough to cross the fjord one more time. And that has proven difficult.
Thank you. I would like to call Frédéric Charon from Faurecia, because it's an automotive OEM supplier. Of course, I think you're very interested by the heavy-duty mobility, because trucks in the future may be powered by fuel cells and will need some H2 tanks.
Yeah, of course. And see, the point is that, as I said, we are a very segmented business, because you have to take into consideration not the possibility to do anything with any vehicle, but it's very much mission oriented. I mean, if you have to drive a truck for 700 kilometers with a driver behind the wheel that is corresponding to his time he can drive, obviously the mission of the vehicle is connected to this mission statement. Battery will not fit, because you cannot drive from Paris to Nice in France in one shot with batteries. Otherwise, you have to stop or to store inside the truck a lot of batteries that will cost an immense amount of money, and that will reduce the payload of the truck. So you see the parameters are multiple. And for this kind of use case, the fuel cell is absolutely fit. At the opposite, if you are taking about a small car to drive into town, its battery is perfect. That means there is no, again, it's not like the internal combustion engine where one fits all. Here we are in a solution very segmented inside the market, and definitely for the trucks makes sense. And also one point is that with the fuel cell you get heat.
Okay,
this heat is not produced from the batteries.
Let's get back now to Federico from SINTEF in Norway. So Federico, you're working with several partners, and there has been a creation of a startup very recently within the SINTEF.
Yes, HyStar. I was actually a bit surprised. We were very hush-hush, and two of our best former colleagues, unfortunately, Magnus Thomas and Alejandro Yarth, they have just started this company that will commercialize high-efficiency electrolysis. I don't know the details. So there is a good number of industrial secrets there. And but I know these guys are extremely skilled, and if they both left at the same time for the same startup, they have certainly some great plans. They have a new process for electrolysis, PEM electrolysis, and they plan to, they're already hiring. So if anyone is interested, they can look for HyStar in the LinkedIn there. And unfortunately, I can't really say that much.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep an eye on this young, innovative company. Okay, so among the speakers, does anyone want to add a comment about what's being said by Federico? Well, if not, we just carry on now with François Aguey-Zinsou from Sydney. He's working for the university, head of MERLin Lab. And I have also to say that he's working, he's just launched H2 Potential. We will discuss this, which is an incubator. So we'll give some more details in a few minutes. But your work, well, this is a picture from H2 Potential, but I think you will explain us maybe in a few minutes what it's all about. But your works are about how to produce hydrogen in a safe way.
You mean how to store hydrogen in a safe way?
Yes. Yeah, of course. How to store it in a safe way.
Well, we have heard a lot about producing hydrogen, and we have heard a lot about various ways of transporting hydrogen. I'm sorry for everybody here in the audience, but ammonia is pretty boring to death. And what everybody forgot is, yeah, those molecules are the usual chemical molecules that are used. They may have some value in certain industry sector, because what hydrogen is good about is the flexibility it provides. And so you can actually create local economy. And I think this is something that where hydrogen is a key driver. So you can actually deglobalize the economy. But really, if you are talking about transporting hydrogen as an energy carrier, and there will be a lot of use for pure hydrogen, starting from vehicles to various applications, then you need a way to store hydrogen. The conventional method to store hydrogen are known: liquefaction, compression. Those technologies are great, but they have their limit. And the limit is that you want to carry more, so we can actually displace fossil fuel. And to displace fossil fuel, this means you need to overcome the downside of hydrogen, which is a low volumetric energy density. So this is where materials are very, very interesting, because not only is they enable to store hydrogen with high volumetric energy density, but also in a safe way. And so we have been doing a lot of work in my research group for many, many years. We have commercialized some of this technology now. And so we are looking also at ways on how we can integrate this technology with existing technology on the market, or how we can integrate this technology with technology that can be used by the general public. And I think for me, from my perspective in my research group, this is something we are interested in, how we enable everybody to use hydrogen and how we democratize hydrogen. And this is a bit what H2 Potential is about, because we have many people coming to see us with great ideas, because if you think about hydrogen, we are actually transforming the entire energy sector. That's what it's about. And it's like inventing how to fly. And so there are plenty of people with plenty of ideas. Some ideas are totally crazy and seems crazy today, but maybe there will be the winning idea of tomorrow.
Okay, I would like to have some examples of the work you've been doing. I was mentioning barbecue just before this conference, because it's nighttime in Australia. So I was just saying it was a joke. Maybe it's time for barbecue, but it's a possibility over in Australia to cook with barbecue, but with hydrogen and in a safe way.
Yeah. So in Australia, in the research lab, we don't have recurring funding, so we have to fund the money, right? So many years ago, when hydrogen was not so fashionable, then we started to demonstrate how the technology we developed can be used. Barbecue are one of them, bicycles are others, and we are developing other crazy ideas like this on the back burner. And really is to show to everybody that hydrogen can be used for many, many different things. So in the barbecue, for example, we use a technology that we have developed, which is a catalytic converter. it's time to go home.
Are you running out of electricity in Australia? No way.
Light is back. There was no more hydrogen.
We will discuss about Leroux company because they offer a device that stores energy, that stores hydrogen for home. So I guess you have one at home.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it will come soon.
It's like the baker, right? You are the one developing the technology, but you are not necessarily the one using it because you know how it functions, and you want to move on to develop the next stuff.
That's okay.
So yeah, so talking about barbecue, so the things we were interested in is demonstrating safe combustion of hydrogen. And this can be used for cooking, but this can also be used for industrial processes where you need heat. And this can also be used when you mix hydrogen with methane, for example. So you solve the problem of burning mixture of methane and hydrogen when you don't exactly know what are the ratio of the two, as it was previously discussed.
Okay, so we'll mention solid storage, maybe much more in details later on. We have a question coming from the audience. It's about the competition with batteries, which is a very classical question in this kind of. No, it's not yet a Q&A session. I would like just to have an answer about this. Because we have solid state technologies in batteries in many countries, including Israel, but not only, with very quick charging. So what do you think of this competition with new batteries, maybe more efficient, and hydrogen on the other side?
Well, in fact, it's not a competition. Batteries have a role, which is to provide typically fast power for a specific application. By tradition, hydrogen has a role to provide duration. So you can see behind me there are some hydrogen bicycles that we designed. This is exactly what it's about. The hydrogen gives a range to the bicycle. And what everybody has to keep in mind is that the best battery we know, the best battery technology we know is a lithium-ion battery. And as it was previously mentioned, you are never going to get a S380 of the ground on lithium-ion battery. The energy density is simply not there. And this is where hydrogen makes the difference, because the only way to displace fossil fuel, the only way to displace the traditional hydrocarbon molecule is by using hydrogen, because the energy density is there. The problem is how you increase the volumetric energy density of hydrogen. One thing that has to be kept in mind also is that batteries are very hard to recycle, especially the lithium ion, and this is a huge environmental concern. With the kind of material we develop, we don't have those concerns. For example, we can do more than 20,000 cycles. At the end of their life, we can remelt those metals, recycle them again. So we are developing clean processes and a circular economy. And this is really what hydrogen should be about, whatever the scale.
One question about Australia, because we can see that this country is speaking more and more of hydrogen. So is it now a popular topic in this country?
It's more than a popular topic. It's a sunshine in a bottle. So like not many other countries, Australia is blessed. We have a lot of mineral resources. And one of the assets of Australia is renewable energy. It's an island, so you can put a wind farm all over the place. There is nobody living in the middle of the country. You can put solar farm all over the place. And so you can produce hydrogen at scale. So the big challenge for the country is how you do that while creating jobs in Australia. And this is again where innovation is needed, because in Australia, we need to be able to produce hydrogen at cost. The existing technology on the market, they are not mature to deliver hydrogen at cost.
Okay, thank you, Francois. So now it's time to have the Q&A session. And we call, of course, Bruno Jamet from the cluster Vehicle of the Future.
Okay, so hello again. Could you elaborate more about the interest of both ammonia and hydrogen, and in which case one is suitable or not?
well, I've got my personal views on that. So, for example, from an Australian perspective, there are a lot of talk about exporting hydrogen in the form of ammonia or other molecule. We even talk about green methane. Although there is so much methane in the ground in Australia that for me it doesn't make sense to go to produce from renewable hydrogen some methane. It's just cheaper to dig it off the ground. Then the problem is because there is actually not a lot of work that has been done in developing proper hydrogen carriers. And so then the back position is to go back to what we already know, which is ammonia, because simply ammonia has a high energy density per volume, per weight as a hydrogen carrier. This may have some application in certain sectors. For example, in Japan, they already set some target to decarbonize their power plant with a certain amount of ammonia that they want to inject to their gas turbine by 2025 or so. That's a potential application. You may hear people also talking about using ammonia for making fertilizer, but I'm not sure how saturated the fertilizer market is. I don't think we are going to multiply by a factor 10 the production of fertilizer across the world. I don't think it's realistic. So ammonia really has key sector where it can play a role. And more globally, the pure hydrogen molecule, for me, will have a major role to play in the coming energy market.
Okay, so Bruno.
Another question is what is the impact on electricity production activity in using H2, for example, from electrolyzers versus directly batteries? What's the impact on electricity production?
Well, really depends on what you want to do. If you want to store electricity, for example, in Australia now, the regulator are thinking of putting a negative penalty to all the owners of solar panel, rooftop solar panel, because there is so much generation that the grid cannot cope anymore. So at the end of the day, if you have to get a malus for exporting your electricity from your solar panel to the grid, then what is the solution? You can use a battery or you can use hydrogen. Obviously, in both cases, the payback time is quite high. The downside of batteries is that they have limited lifetime. The upside of hydrogen is that you have longer duration of storage. And so there is a balance that needs to be found. If you start to think about large solar farm, then for me, hydrogen has a much more higher value, because with that hydrogen, not only you can generate electricity, but you can also export it and you can send it to different end users. And for example, in Australia, we have a lot of remote community. There is a big mining sector. There are a lot of farming sector where they need to have access to green energy. And so you could then develop a business model where you can use that hydrogen to generate electricity, depending on the arbitrage, or you could use that hydrogen to send it to end users that need to generate their own clean energy.
Federico, maybe you want to say a word about all this?
Well, yeah, I'm also leading another project, HySiLabs, where we have a generation of hydrogen from wind, and that actually is a nice pair with Australia's project for storing wind energy in batteries. And the difference is that, of course, you have a longer term storage. Their objective is, like Francois was illustrating, that there was this exporting energy via hydrogen. But one thing that really improves the economy there is that if you can also participate in the grid service market. Electrolyzers have extremely fast dynamics. That's a great thing. They can ramp up and down in a matter of seconds, which means that if the grid operator needs a few megawatts or needs to get rid of a few megawatts, they can just use this electrolyzer in order to stabilize the grid. And that is actually a major value proposition, especially in the introduction area. If you need 5 megawatts to produce hydrogen, you could simply buy 10 megawatts and plan for future market expansion and use 5 megawatts in production, 5 megawatts for grid services, and it actually pays off.
Okay, maybe last question, Bruno.
Yes, the question of the impact on electricity network for renewable storage was the first part, but what about the impact on refueling truck H2 versus battery?
So maybe much more a question for Federico, which is working on heavy duty.
Refueling
yeah, well, impact exactly on what, Bruno?
On the electricity network. That means if you charge very fast large batteries, it could be a large impact.
Of course, if you want to use, for example, that Elon Musk's Tesla Semi, that if you're going to have to charge in the range of megawatts, it's an enormous battery package. If you want to charge it in a half an hour or 1 hour, that is going to be an enormous requirement of power. And if you look at your power bill, I suppose it's going to be similar to mine. That you pay for the energy, but you pay almost as much for the maintenance of the power grid. So even if batteries are indeed more efficient at storing and giving back energy, they will require an enormous amount of power in order to be usable. This is not something that you need to do if you have a local production of hydrogen. Then you can simply produce through the night, for example, and stop production when the power is more expensive.
Okay, thank you guys. So at the end for this session, we carry on now with disruptive technologies coming from startups. And I would like to welcome first Pierre-Emmanuel Casanova from HySiLabs. So you're based in the south of France. We're traveling a lot in this webinar. So you have a nice innovation. So it's not about liquid hydrogen, but it's how to transport in a liquid carrier hydrogen, for instance, to H2 stations.
That's correct. Thank you, Laurent. So basically, I already said that the company has been built on an expected chemical reaction from the university, so I will not spend more time on that. But yeah, so basically we developed liquid hydrogen carrier. So the very famous one is a liquid organic hydrogen carrier that has been developed in Germany, for instance, or in Japan. We talked like before on ammonia. I totally agree on what everybody said about ammonia. It's not the future of transportation of hydrogen. So what we developed basically is a liquid carrier which is not toxic, which is environmental friendly because it's based on silica. So it's silicon derivatives. And this silicon derivative, we call it hydrosil, could be easily transported and used as mainly because we use the same logistic as the one used for conventional fuel, conventional liquid fuel. So all the advantages of hydrogen will be mixed to the historical way of transporting liquid fuel. So that's what we developed. So the liquid by itself is stable at standard conditions. And as I said before, is non-toxic and environmental friendly. We don't need any energy to release the hydrogen from the liquid carrier. So that means that it's very easy to extract the hydrogen from these liquid carriers, which is a kind of a liquid sponge of hydrogen. And but of course, we need some energy for the charging process. And that's the idea to build and plug this technology to where industrial partner will produce huge amount, massive amount of hydrogen, because that's where hydrogen and transportation will be needed.
I would like to see the picture from HySiLabs, because you have a nice truck. We will see that in a few seconds. So here it is. So now, what are the plans, Pierre-Emmanuel? Will we see that on the market pretty soon?
Yeah, so pretty soon is quite complicated for when you are a disruptive solution, but yeah. So just a quick background on that. We created the company in 2015 and we transfer a patent from university. And since 2015, we worked on the industrialization of the process. The processes, because we have two processes, charging and the release processes. Based on that, we acquire a real expertise strong expertise on silicon hydride as a liquid carrier. So basically what we plan to do is to build a hydrogen production plant, not a hydrogen production plant, but a hydrogen liquid carrier production plant in 2022. So beginning of 2022, we will be able to plug the first demonstrator to a hydrogen production plant. Whatever kind of hydrogen you want to produce, we will charge and transport this hydrogen in 2022, beginning 2022.
I would like to hear from Secil Torun from ENGIE, because the group is working on liquid hydrogen, which is not the same thing, but I think it's interesting maybe to compare and to have some explanation from you.
Yes, I share some of the points which was mentioned earlier regarding the value of having pure hydrogen managed, but the challenge is to have it available, in a competitive way, to have it available now. So really, we thought it will be interesting to get involved in development on liquid hydrogen. So liquefying actually hydrogen is pure form. So we get into a partnership with Ariane Group on this development, targeting competitive prices to produce and to be able to find a way to manage the logistics also of the delivery of hydrogen. So today it's very hard to see what will be the solution. There are many different technologies which are there are places for many of them, and really it's a huge challenge to make it them enough mature to have solutions, to provide the solutions on these logistical aspects, which is really key for the development. Producing hydrogen in a competitive way is one point, but transporting and storing it in a competitive way is another point. So today, investigating different ones, and we are working with Pierre-Emmanuel in a project, Sun2X project, for instance, also trying to see how we can move all together, combining electrolyzers, combining this type of different technologies to find, I would say, the best ones for different constraints we will have to manage.
That's nice. So once again, Pierre-Emmanuel, your process is working at ambient temperature and pressure.
Yeah, the liquid itself is transported at standard conditions, so ambient temperature and atmospheric pressure. And if I may say something about what Secil said, I totally agree. The idea is if we want to switch to an hydrogen economy, we really need to think about a mix of different technologies. Different technology to produce, different technology to transport, different technology to store. And instead of like fighting each other, I'm pretty sure that the best way to do is to try to cooperate, because, for instance, our technology will not fit to a specific needs with ENGIE or with other, but for a specific project, we will have 100% fit. So instead of saying we will be the only one, I think I'm pretty sure to help the hydrogen economy that we all need to work together and say, yeah, as it happened in the past, we had like different way from fossil fuels, the one that used for planes, the one used for maritime complications. The same, we have different fossil fuels for light vehicles. It will be the same for hydrogen. Different way of producing, different way of transporting and storage.
Thank you. I would like now to call Olivier Dhez from HRS based in Grenoble. Before speaking of your innovation strategy, maybe one word on this process to have a liquid carrier to facilitate the transportation of hydrogen to H2 stations. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's really a challenge for the future to transport hydrogen, because today, when you are talking about trucks, about heavy vehicles, you are talking about a large amount of hydrogen. If we take the example of a standard refueling station, fuel station for trucks, if you're looking for hydrogen, we will talk about few tons per day to be delivered. So you need to transport this hydrogen and to bring this hydrogen to the refueling station. So I think it's really key to find different way to transport this energy.
Okay, because we're talking about innovation in H2 stations, let's carry on with you, Olivier. So at the beginning, your company was in industrial pipes, and then you've been called to help Air Liquide, which is a very well-known company, and you helped them to build H2 stations because you had the know-how about pipes.
Yes, so it was in 2004, so almost 20 years ago, that Air Liquide developed the technology to start the refueling for mobility. So I think Air Liquide is a very good company in doing development, technology development. So they were looking to some partners to build this refueling station. So we did that for almost 15 years with Air Liquide, and then in 2019 we decided to take our own destiny and to develop our own station and to produce them by ourselves.
So we have to explain that it's very complicated to build a H2 station because you have different pressures. You have to make a balance between all this.
Yes. So the challenge for the refueling station is how to take the hydrogen in, I will say, in many form and many pressure, different type, and to condition it to make it in the best condition to refuel the vehicles. Today we know that vehicles, we have two pressure, 350, 700 bars. So the station should be able to refuel any type of vehicles because you never know what type of vehicle will come to the refueling station. So we design everything to be able to do that, and I think the other challenge is to be always ready to refuel vehicles, and that's also quite challenging sometimes, that the station is always ready for that.
So as you have said, now you're building your own stations for clients, and you have received an order from Total, which is an oil company, because they want a portable refueling station.
Yeah, so it's very important to say it's a portable and not a mobile refueling station because it's not the same. That means that we build a station, our station are built on module for compression, module for distribution, module for high pressure storage, and we design it in a way that it can be installed quickly, unmount, set up on trucks, move to another site, and remount on the new site and be available in 1 week. We can do that, and the station can be ready to refuel vehicles in a very short time. Yes.
So we know that there has been an IPO for your company, which has been very successful in Paris. About the organization of the company, you will have pretty soon an innovation team focused on future developments.
Yes. So for that, we will build first a new site, and I think we'll be able by the end of this week to provide pictures for this new site. It will be I think unique in Europe today for developing and testing a new refueling station. And for that also we will set up a R&D team, because we need to develop new technology and also new usage and new way to handle this the refueling of the vehicle. So for that, yes, we will set up a specific team for that, and we are looking to work with some big partners that and to enable the way to increase maybe the pressure, increase the speed to refueling to refuel the vehicles, because as it was said today, the usage of refuel, the one key I say message for people is that using hydrogen vehicles, it should be the same than using fuel vehicles today in terms of refueling, in terms of usage in general.
Thank you. So I have a question for our speakers. Does anybody want to make a comment, or do you have any reactions? I know that Francois in Australia wants to mention, of course, solid storage, which is something very interesting in terms of safety. Francois?
You mean solid state storage for refueling station? Yeah, this is something we have on the back burner, because one of the key things we see is that especially when you install those refueling stations in crowded area, safety is an important factor. And so if you can store hydrogen as a solid, then you significantly improve the safety factor, especially with the number that have been mentioned. You need to store several tons of hydrogen. And so hydrogen compressed at 350 bar is a good technology, but it's not necessarily the best one. There was an incident, I think it was last year in Sweden.
In Norway.
So, Norway, yeah. You don't want to have those kinds of incidents happening all the time. Otherwise, public acceptance is going to be pretty low.
Okay, so because we are online together, so what about the applications according to you with solid storage, which is a technology which is much more mature that we could think?
So in Australia, there is a clear thing here regarding solid state storage is to store hydrogen at bulk scale. Simply to store hydrogen, transport it to end users. And so we see that that's the best technology to do that, simply because we can do so many cycles with it. We can do more than 20,000 cycles. The cost of the technology is relatively low. Where are the barriers is that the technology is relatively unknown even to the industry sector. And so this is where is the main barrier for the technology.
So a question about mobility, because you have mentioned H2 bikes. So there is a project with Leroux company in Australia. They have a partnership with a Dutch design studio, and they unveiled a prototype of such a hydrogen-powered bike.
Yeah, so there are some plans to build under the Leroux brand a commercial bike. Leroux is not the only one doing that. There are other players on the global market trying to put hydrogen back on the market. The difference is Leroux is going to use some solid state storage technology. This same technology may be used also by other players on the market, simply for the safety aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is this something you were investigating with H2 potential as well? Some other applications in mobility?
I cannot really talk about those kind of things in public because we signed a few NDAs, but we are obviously looking at mobility for various projects where solid state technology brings a significant value compared to traditional compressed hydrogen.
Okay, about solid storage, I would like to call now Secil Torun from ENGIE, because she wanted to say a word about this. Secil?
Yes, thank you, thank you, Francois. Yes, I would like to mention that share that there is a way to on this topic of storage by looking at solid storage technologies. And just to tell that we are very practically involved in a European project called HyCare. We are developing a 50 kilogram solid storage tank based on methyl hydrates, which has the advantage of being of low pressure and being able to be installed very close to our customers. And this is really important to de-risk, I would say, the market, especially on this brick. And we will first test this storage in our facility close to Paris, and before implementing it directly site.
Okay, maybe Olivier Dhez from HRS can have a reaction, because We have mentioned solid storage for H2 stations. So what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think as we already mentioned, that all the inputs and all the solutions are really open, because if we want to change all the mobility, if you want to use it in grids, if you want to use hydrogen everywhere, I think all technology will be accepted for that. And I think in the future we'll see what will be the major one that we will succeed. But I think today also, as mentioned, that we are at the beginning of the story. So I think all the new technology, all the new way to use hydrogen, I think it's a good thing for everyone.
Frédéric, Charon, at Faurecia, are you working on solid storage as well? Is it something you're keeping an eye on?
Very shortly on the solid storage, and also what has been shown by Pierre-Emmanuel and discussed by François. When we talk about solid storage in mobility, mobility ranges from bikes until cargo ships. All have the issue of clean engines and mobility. That means what is absolutely key is to identify the KPIs and see which is a solution that fits. That means start from a very basic, scientifically based, according to the leading KPIs from the user. And François mentioned it, the energy density, also the time to get the hydrogen from the storage, the time of refueling, that sometimes could be not an issue. Refueling a cargo or a truck in the station is a completely different story. So that's the way to address. In my job, that's the way we say it. I mean, which KPIs with which performance factor of each storage. So that's the right way to find the solution, and there will be multiple.
Thank you. So now let's carry on with the low-cost green hydrogen. And we're going to discuss that point with Vaitea Cowan from Enapter. So hello again. So you just mentioned your process, which is AEM solution. So it's a membrane with anions. We're going to display just one picture in order to better understand what it's all about. So it's a kind of low-cost production for green hydrogen, or a lower cost?
Absolutely. So here you can see our AEM stack, but maybe even taking it a step back in regards to how the AEM works. And so, as you mentioned, there is a membrane, and it'll attract the anions instead of the protons. And our technology is absolutely unique because it doesn't require any noble metals to achieve high lifetime and high performance as well. So we have a low-cost stack, a low-cost balance of plant, and we then have the foundation for a low-cost electrolyzer. So we're quite excited because the AEM is only 10 years old, and the R&D ahead of us has a lot of untapped potential in regards to driving down the cost, increasing the efficiency and the lifetime as well. So, you know, we've been hearing a lot of, we're at the very beginning of this field, and there's also an analogy that we like to bring up in regards to where the electrolyzer manufacturers are today. They're building systems similar to the IT industry's early mainframes or supercomputers, right? So each electrolyzer is designed as an individual project that is really difficult to scale if you think about it. And so we're coming in with a different approach to build electrolyzers as a product. So we're like the PC disrupting the IT industry back in the 1980s. And we really believe that this is the way forward to make a modular product. So what we see here on this slide is our AEM stack, which is the same no matter what scale of hydrogen you need. So either you need a small scale electrolyzer, which would be you know, a standard one, 2.4 kilowatts of energy coming in. But if you do want to have up to 1 megawatt or even more, then you would go into our containerized solution, which is stacking the stack itself. So it's really a universal product that will meet all hydrogen demand. while driving down the cost, obviously.
One word about a project with massive production of green hydrogen. It will happen in Germany next year.
Yes, definitely. So we're setting up our campus at the moment. So our Enapter campus is welcoming more than 300 colleagues. So we also have
by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to show this one to you. And I mean, this will be a blueprint actually for the mass production of our AEM electrolyzers. We want to showcase that we can scale green technologies and also be green at the same time, because as you'll notice here, we have a lot of solar panels installed on all the rooftops, and we are located in NRW next to renewable energy park. So our production of electrolyzers will be fully powered by green energy. And this is something where we really want to lead the way and showcase that there doesn't need to be a trade-off when we're scaling up technologies in regards to the environmental impact.
So how do you see the future for the next years? You're confident?
Absolutely. I think it's only the beginning. I really believe in the technology that we have and also the cost reduction path. So it's actually exciting to see where hydrogen will really be picking up, because you see the trend in Europe of the renewable energy generation, and you see the shift away from the gigawatt and rather going into the megawatts and also in the kilowatt scale, which is a clear showcase for decentralized energy, which hydrogen can definitely be plugged in there as well.
Thank you. I would like to call again Secil Torun from ENGIE, because she wanted to mention a startup which is producing high quality hydrogen. So the name is H2Site.
Yes, it's a great story. It is a way that we like projects to end up. We were working with TU Eindhoven in the Netherlands and Tecnalia in Spain for many years in different collaborative projects on membrane reactors. And time has come to set up a spin-off of these technologies, which will address, as you said, competitive production of hydrogen in a decentralized way with high quality of hydrogen. And this is very interesting because we have one reactor with the palladium membrane inside. You are able in a very compact way to use green gas and to produce this hydrogen. But what is more interesting that this membrane reactor is quite agnostic to different entrants and may use ammonia, may use different carriers and produce the same type of high quality of hydrogen. So it's very promising once again to unlock different markets, and H2Site is one of the bridge which could also help to deliver hydrogen on the market today.
Thank you. It's time now for the Q&A session following this part about startups. So I'm going to call Bruno Jamet from the Cluster Vehicle of the Future. Do we have any questions?
Yes, many questions. The first is about HySiLabs. What is the energies involved?
It's up to you.
Yes, what are the energies involved in charging and releasing hydrogen from the liquid carrier? And the second thing is, how does the energy density compare with classical fossil fuels?
That's a very good question, technical question. On the capacity, we can store up to 8.7%. So it's like 7 times more than compressed gas at 200 bars. And in terms of energy, we have like 10 to 15 processes depending on the kind of energy that we can use. So I don't have any, I don't have a specific answer to that, as it really depends on the hydrogen production plant that we will plug on. So for instance, if we want to plug to solar panels with heat by produced from the solar panels, we will use like almost nothing in terms of energy, because we can reuse the heat by produced from the solar panels. So it really depends on the production site that we are targeting. So that's also why we need to work closely with hydrogen producers to see where the technology fits or not.
Okay, next question.
Okay, the second question is about solid storage on vehicles. How fast can you refill the vehicle?
Okay, so maybe Francois will be able to give an answer about this.
Well, there is actually no vehicle that works on solid storage except bicycle in my lab. But if you were to build a small car, and I think Toyota is one of the manufacturers that has built small prototypes using solid state storage, it will take about 20 minutes to recharge one of those. The key challenge is to get rid of the heat generated by the solid storage material.
Okay. Next.
About storage in vehicles in Burgundy-Franche-Comté, there was MobiPost a few years ago, but it's not a very large-scale deployment for sure. I have a question here for Enapter. What is the efficiency of Enapter's electrolyzer, including power supply equipment?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, I'm happy to say that we're at par with the competing technologies out there. So, you know, what's important to note that there is the lower heating value and the higher heating value of hydrogen. And we do want to be more conservative and just take the lower heating value. And at that one, we're already at 68%.
Okay, thank you for this short answer. So we come to the last part, how to work and innovate together. And I would like to hear now from Frédéric Charon from Faurecia and again Secil Torun from ENGIE. So you have heard a lot of speakers with bright ideas. So what do you think of all this and the way maybe you could have some additional partners in the future? How to work together? What's your opinion about this?
I think that the momentum we gain on hydrogen over the past year is already showing that we work together, because we teamed up and we teamed with ENGIE, we teamed with Air Liquide, with Michelin, where we partnered to build, let's say, to grow Symbio. That means those partnerships already exist, and that's the way that we became audible also at European and national level, so that the venture was taken seriously. And now we get this momentum. So the cooperation already exists between corporates, and we are sitting around the same table at the National Hydrogen Council in France, and also the Hydrogen Council, Hydrogen Europe. That means that are all parts where people cooperate and connect in order to make the different cluster of let's say supply from the different company connect together. That's for the corporate, if I could say that for this chunk. That's all. Was all the question, or also linked to startup and medium companies? Okay, so maybe Secil, because I know that the organization in also you have not had the possibility to discuss about that. I did it at the beginning regarding the organization of innovation and working with a startup. Maybe you can comment on that, because ENGIE has been pioneering this organization.
Yeah, so I fully share what Frédéric said. We are already collaborating a lot all together, and it's really key for the technologies. It's really key on the lobbying. It's really key on the grants that we can get from the very beginning. It's really key on the normalization, on the regulation. So there are many topics on which we have to go on being innovative and being able to put in place, I would say, different solutions to make it real. And today, what is really important for us is to go on going on demonstration and industrializing these solutions to get the competitiveness of this chain.
Thank you. I would like to call now Vaitea Cowan from Enapter. So Vaitea, I guess you're open to work on large-scale projects and to work with partners.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we already have 100 customers worldwide. One of them is actually Levo, and it's a lot of fun working with them because we have the same mindset, modularity, scaling up. But we're also working with industrial players to create ammonia or methane or decentralized energy storage. So anyone who wants to actually fast track into green hydrogen, they should come to us because it's a lot quicker with us.
One word about the challenge, innovation challenge you're organizing.
Yeah, so until April 22nd, we are welcoming anyone who has a hydrogen idea. François was talking about wild ideas that might come true. This is exactly the kind of space that we want to create for people to pitch in their ideas. We already have over 20 entries, and we're quite excited to see the next ones that will come out. So yeah, check it out. Any possible idea that can be powered by hydrogen, whether it's for mobility, as we see here, or energy storage or industrial applications. Let your imagination, your creativity for hydrogen run free. And we're excited to see you. And yeah, stay tuned.
So this is an example, could be a spaceship or whatever be the means of transportation if it's powered by hydrogen, green hydrogen, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, whether it's a plane or even a hoverboard or a rocket ship, we're seeing a lot of cool applications out there. Even a whole suit powered by hydrogen just to fly around. There's no limits. Have fun.
Why not? Let's be crazy. Thank you. I would like to turn to François Aguey-Zinsou in Australia. What are the possibilities to cooperate with Australian research centers for those who might be interested?
Well, there's a lot of things happening down under, as we say. And I have to say to the French colleagues there on the other side of the world, we don't see you much here. We see the German, we see the Japanese. I would love to see more of the French company in Australia. We are in Asia. I know it sounds a bit far, but if you look at all the models that have been done, the first growing market for the hydrogen economy is going to be in Asia for some obvious reason. Obviously, there will be a growing market in Europe also. So we have set up with some of my French colleagues an international research network. I'm also vice president of the Australian-French Association for Research and Innovation. And so we know how to do business with France, between France and Australia, and how to facilitate that. And I would like to strongly encourage you to come to see us because there is a great market potential here also.
Thank you. I would like to hear from Federico Zenith from SINTEF in Norway. Federico, if you are still there, I would like to hear from you. So we have discussed a lot about innovation, cooperation. So do you have any comment on this? How could we work all together and be more efficient?
Well, that's our core business, innovation, cooperation, and research. We do a lot of that, and we have seen that in general, European projects are great hubs for network, not just for doing the project itself, but the networking that appears from these projects is really fruitful. We have seen companies starting doing their own project financed by the EU, and then they continue after the project. For example, we had the VDL, Bosch, and Erin Klinger that had a very fruitful cooperation, a giant leap project that closed last year. And we hope to repeat the same with Stash.
Okay, I'd like now to call Arthur Leroux from Enogia because you're the head of a startup. So maybe one comment about the way to cooperate with a lot of partners.
Well, in fact, it was interesting cooperating with Faurecia because their approach is not so exclusive. They leave us working with many other partners. And I think this is a very fruitful approach because it lets us know more about a market we don't know very well because we went into hydrogen only 2.5 years ago. And, by discussing with many partners, it enables us to get a better feeling and understanding of the market. Still, by working with Faurecia, it gives us strength of an industrial group, so it's a very fruitful approach. And I get the feeling it's also good, mutually profitable and good for them as well.
Okay, I would like to get back to Alessandra BARBA from ENGIE, if she is still there, because we mentioned the Gaia project, but you wanted to say that you have some unique testing possibilities, and of course, you're very open to partnerships in order to create some R&D projects.
Yes, indeed. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, indeed, on the Gaia platform, which is built in the south of France, we have various processes who are in place, and even if it's at semi-industrial scale, it's really an R&D playground, I would say, because there are lots of sensors to be able to follow the gas quality that is produced. There are on-site and operational team, even a laboratory which is in place with a dedicated team. So, and the whole unit was really built in a modular and flexible way in order to be able to adapt to new projects and to implement new processes. So indeed, the goal for this platform is really to open up to, I would say, the market and other players who wants to join us in this demonstration of the new production pathway for hydrogen. So if you are interested, don't hesitate.
Thank you. So it's time now for the last Q&A session, and we get back to Bruno Jamet from the cluster. Vehicle of the future. Do we have any last questions?
No, not really. In fact, there is a remark that big players are already collaborating, which is great. But what about SMEs? And for SMEs, I would like to mention that a cluster like Pôle Véhicule Futur, but also some other structures can help you a lot by, for example, a hydrogen club in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We come to the end of this webinar. We learned a lot from all the speakers. So I would like to remind what are the following events. So this was a webinar on innovation. We'll have another one on April the 29th. So please save the date. We'll talk about deployment. Of course, don't forget that the forum Hydrogen Business for Climate is scheduled at the end of September on the 29th and on the 30th, 29th and 30th. So it will be with conferences, with B2B meetings, and of course technical visits. So don't hesitate to visit the website. I hope you have enjoyed being with us during more than 1 hour and a half. Take care and bye-bye.